Virtue, War, Aristotle versus Peterson, shocking. Good life. Truths. What if the path to a truly good life, a virtuous life, isn't really about chasing happiness at all? And what if an ancient Greek philosopher, who's been gone for over 2,000 years, and a pretty controversial modern psychologist are locked in this silent war over how we should even define living well? Seriously, forget those fleeting pleasures and quick fixes. We're about to explore a real battle of ideas. Aristotle's more rational path to human flourishing versus Jordan Peterson's call to stare chaos right in the face. The truths we dig up here might just surprise you, and maybe even reshape what you thought you knew about virtue and the good life. Defining the combatants, setting the stage. All right, so in one corner, we've got Aristotle, a giant of ancient Greek philosophy. For him, the main goal of being human is something called eudaimonia. It's often translated as flourishing, which means living well and doing well. It's not just about feeling good, it's about actually becoming the best human you can be. And his roadmap to get there, it's all about cultivating arete, or virtue, basically an excellence of character. Think of it as becoming the best version of yourself through clear thinking and good habits. Then, in the other corner, stands Jordan Peterson, the well-known clinical psychologist and cultural commentator. Peterson sees a world where chaos and suffering are just part of the deal. His way to a meaningful life, for what many would call a virtuous life, isn't so much about finding that calm, harmonious state like Aristotle suggested. Instead, it's about bravely facing that chaos, taking on huge personal responsibility and speaking the truth no matter how tough. So you've got these two thinkers, centuries apart, offering really different but both pretty compelling ideas on how to handle life. Their clash isn't just some stuffy academic debate. It's a practical war for how we should actually live our lives. The nature of virtue. What are we fighting for? So, what exactly is this virtue that both Aristotle and Peterson are so focused on? This is where we see the first major battle line being drawn. For Aristotle, virtue is about your character. It's a tendency to act the right way, finding a balance between two extremes and doing too little or doing too much. Take courage, for instance. It's the sweet spot between being a coward, too little, and being reckless, too much. This isn't about blindly following rules. It's about using phronesis, or practical wisdom, to figure out the best thing to do in any situation. For Aristotle, virtue is about rational excellence. It's getting your reason and your desires to work together, so you not only do good things, but actually enjoy doing them. It's like a well-tended garden, the result of patient work and making good actions into habits. You become fair by doing fair things, brave by doing brave things. Peterson's idea of virtue, though he might not always use that exact classical term, comes from a totally different place. For him, virtue is something forged in the fire of hardship. It's deeply tied to taking on serious personal responsibility for the suffering and bad stuff in the world, starting with yourself. You've probably heard his famous line, "Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world." From Peterson's angle, virtue is the moral guts to face the abyss, to speak truth even when it's hard, and to willingly take on the burdens of life. It's less about finding a perfect rational balance, and more about building the toughness to handle life's difficulties and strive for meaning despite them. It's the courage to carry your cross, as he might say. The difference is pretty stark, isn't it? Aristotle's virtue is an ordered, rational state of excellent character, polished like a fine instrument. Peterson's is more of a rugged, existential strength, born from bravely taking responsibility in a chaotic world. The path to virtue, different roadmaps to the summit, if their end goals, their definitions of virtue, are different, then it makes sense that their roadmaps for getting there are pretty different too. Aristotle believed you build virtue mostly through habit, guided by reason. It's not something you're just born with, and it's not something you get just by understanding it in your head. It takes constant practice, like learning to play an instrument or a sport. You do virtuous things over and over, guided by reason and by watching virtuous people until these actions become second nature. That's how you build a stable, virtuous character. Practical wisdom, or phronesis, plays a huge part here. It's the smarts that help you think clearly about what's good and how to achieve it in real-life situations. It's a growth process, a journey of maturing morally within your community. Peterson, on the other hand, really highlights a path made up of conscious, often tough choices. He says virtue is grown by willingly facing the unknown and the messy parts of life, both inside yourself and out in the world. It's about choosing to tell the truth, or at least not to lie, even when it would be easier to do otherwise. It's about taking on responsibility bit by bit, starting with what's right in front of you. This isn't so much about gently forming habits as it is about an ongoing, sometimes heroic, act of will. A constant decision to aim for the highest good you can think of and to deal with the suffering that life inevitably brings. The path means trying to be more than you are, always aiming higher and fitting the unavoidable darkness and suffering into a life that makes sense. Think of it this way. For Aristotle, imagine a dedicated gardener carefully looking after plants, making sure they get just the right amount of sun and water until they thrive. For Peterson, picture a hero heading into a dark forest to face a dragon, knowing the danger but driven by the hunt for something precious. Both take effort, but the kind of effort and the terrain they cover are totally different. The good life defined, eudaimonia versus meaning. So what's the ultimate prize in this virtue war? What does the good life actually look like according to these two heavyweights? Aristotle's word for the good life is eudaimonia. Now this often gets translated as happiness or flourishing, but it's so much more than just a passing mood. Eudaimonia is a life lived by virtue and reason, a life where you're reaching your full human potential. It involves not just doing virtuous things, but also having certain external goods, like friends, health, and a bit of prosperity, because these things can help you flourish. For Aristotle, the good life is an active life, a life of excellent human activity, especially using our ability to reason. It's a life that's objectively good and feels complete. Peterson, while he doesn't just brush off happiness, argues that chasing it directly is a pointless goal. Instead, he thinks the real aim should be the pursuit of meaning. Life, as Peterson sees it, is naturally full of suffering and chaos. Meaning is what we discover when we willingly accept the responsibility to face this suffering, to make things better, to speak truth, and to aim for the highest good. So the good life isn't always going to be comfortable or constantly happy in the way we usually think of it. It's a life that has purpose, a life where you've taken on your share of the world's load, and by doing that, found a deep sense of significance that can hold up against life's tragedies. This meaning is often found when you take on responsibility. So you've got Aristotle's vision of a flourishing life marked by rational, virtuous action and a feeling of wholeness. And then there's Peterson's vision of a meaningful life, found in courageously and responsibly facing up to life's built-in challenges. One focuses on reaching a state of well-being through excellence, the other on finding purpose through carrying a burden. The shocking good life. Truths. Where the battle ignites. Okay, now we get to those shocking truths we talked about in the title. When you put these two philosophies next to each other, the differences aren't just small details. They're completely different ways of looking at life. Shocking truth. 1. Happiness is a byproduct, not the goal, for both, but differently. You might think Aristotle is all about happiness, but his eudaimonia isn't that fleeting feeling we call happiness today. It's a state of human thriving that comes from virtuous action. Peterson is more blunt about it, saying happiness is a pointless goal, and that meaning is the stronger alternative. The shocker! Both of them steer us away from our modern obsession with instant emotional fixes, but Aristotle offers a life of excellent activity as the objective good, while Peterson offers meaning through responsibility as the shield against suffering. Shocking truth number 2. Virtue. Harmony versus warfare. Aristotle's virtue is about creating an inner harmony, a rational order in your soul where your desires line up with your reason. It's a peaceful, though it takes effort, state of excellence. Peterson's virtue, that strength to take responsibility and speak truth, often sounds like it's about struggle, confrontation, and dealing with chaos. It's less about inner peace and more about bravely engaging with life's battles. What does this mean? Well, one path to the good life might focus on rational growth and balance, while the other suggests an almost warrior-like approach to just existing. Shocking truth number 3, the role of suffering. Obstacle versus raw material. For Aristotle, while he didn't ignore hardship, the main idea was how outside factors could get in the way of, or help, virtue and eudaimonia. Suffering is something that can take away from flourishing. For Peterson, suffering is absolutely key. It's the basic condition of life that actually gives us the chance to find meaning. Facing suffering, accepting it, and pushing forward in spite of it is the path. This is a huge difference. Is suffering mainly a roadblock to the good life, or is it the essential ingredient for a meaningful one? Shocking truth number 4, individual agency, rational choice versus existential leap. Aristotle believed in our power to reason and choose virtuously, but he also knew that our upbringing and society matter. Peterson puts an almost total emphasis on individual responsibility and the existential choice to face chaos and create meaning. Sometimes he gets criticized for not emphasizing systemic issues enough. The subtle shock here is just how heavy that responsibility feels. For Aristotle, society helps you grow virtue. For Peterson, the individual often has to make a heroic, almost lonely stand. These aren't just minor philosophical disagreements. These are fundamentally different game plans for what it means to be a good person and live a good life. The war isn't about deciding who's right, but about which map makes more sense to you for your own life. Personal responsibility and conclusion. Your life, your choice. Here's something interesting. Both Aristotle and Peterson, for all their differences, really agree on how incredibly important personal effort and action are. You can't just sit back and wait for the good life to happen to you. You have to actively get involved in making it. Aristotle really drives home that virtue is built through deliberate, repeated actions, guided by reason and practical wisdom. It's your job to shape your character. Peterson's entire philosophy is built on the call to take radical personal responsibility for your thoughts, your actions, your suffering, and your search for meaning. So what have we learned from this virtue war? Aristotle gives us a picture of human flourishing that's all about rational excellence, habit, and building a harmonious character within a supportive community. His is a path of ordered growth toward becoming the best human you can be. Jordan Peterson lays out a starker, more existential view. A life where meaning is hammered out in the fires of suffering by willingly facing chaos, speaking truth, and taking on massive personal responsibility. His is a path of courageously dealing with the often harsh realities of life. The shocking truths really come down to how different these roadmaps are and the realization that the good life might not be a one-size-fits-all deal. One path is about the steady work of creating inner order. The other is about bravely confronting outer and inner chaos. Ultimately, there's no single winner declared in this war of ideas. The real takeaway is knowing that trying to live a good, virtuous and meaningful life takes serious personal commitment. Whether you find yourself leaning towards Aristotle's rational harmony or Peterson's courageous way of taking on responsibility, the power, and really the obligation to choose your path and walk it with purpose that lies with you. CTA, call to action. So, whose approach to virtue and the good life clicks more with you? Is it Aristotle's path of rational excellence, or Peterson's call to face chaos head on? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely read every single one. And hey, if you found this exploration helpful and you want to explore more of the biggest ideas shaping our lives, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. That way, you won't miss our next video. We're all on this journey of figuring things out together. Thanks for watching.